Sure. Okay, it looks like we're going live here. So welcome to the second bridge update here. I'm with Terry Ward, the project manager for MnDot. I'm Jay Owens, city engineer. Terry's going to go through some videos that he brought with today to kind of show what construction is. Are they the Winona videos, some of the stuff? Or?
One from Winona and some from the Red Wing Bridge
Some
project.
from Red Wing. So we're going to kind of show, while he's talking about some different operations, what it really means, what a cofferdam is, and what work is going on out on the bridge project. But this past month, it's been a little bit busier on the Red Wing side. I've been busy with Terry on some of the sewer and water relocate down on the off of 3rd and 4th near Bluff Street. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Terry to kind of talk about the project a little bit, schedule moving forward, and what we've got planned kind of coming into late summer and the fall, and maybe touch on some of what might be some winter work that we've got as well.
Sure.
So with that, I'll turn it over to Terry Ward.
Thanks, Jay. You can ask questions at any time. Go ahead and interrupt. But I like to start with safety. So far, no accidents on the project. We had one worker that had a little trouble with the heat and the humidity, but we took care of that right away. So far, no accidents, no lost work time, real safe project. Last week we had OSHA out on a consultation, a voluntary process where OSHA comes out and reviews the projects and gives us some good pointers, so that's real proactive. And then we put a little news release out actually yesterday in a Facebook post asking people to please stay out of the work area. And mainly on the Red Wing side, there's some cisterns out there and old underground facilities, features that we're finding, and so we're not quite sure, exactly what was all out there. Sure. With the history of that site. And we found some asbestos out there as well. So we're just asking people, please stay out of the work area. There are some hazards out there. In terms of the project, we're on schedule. We had some impacts with flooding on our causeway construction. So that slowed us down a few days, the high water, but we are on schedule and doing real well schedule-wise. In terms of the budget, we're on budget. We haven't had any major budget issues so far on the project. Some minor things, little modifications on erosion control because of the heavy rains and such, but nothing major in terms of cost or budget so far. And I'll talk a little bit about traffic. So basically, the river crossing will stay like it is traffic-wise for this summer. We've got, we've built a little switch in traffic, and we've got 2 lanes going in each direction. You'll see some flagging operations outside of those peak hours, 8:30 to 3 p.m. during the week. We're going to build a bypass for a box culvert kind of on the far north end, or the far Wisconsin end. There's a 12 by 12 box culvert we're going to put in. We have to build a bypass for that, and that bypass has to sit for 1 year in terms of settlement before we put traffic on it. So you'll see a lot of what you've seen so far, trucks coming in and out, material being hauled in, building embankment for the bridge, building the bypass and such. But traffic really shouldn't be much different from what you're seeing out there now. One of the key things we did in the design phase is told the contractor you cannot take left turns, because we would be afraid they'd be backing up traffic there. So you're not seeing contractors take left turns off the highway into the work area. It's all right in, right out. And we're happy. It seems to be working real well in terms of traffic. On the Minnesota side, or the Red Wing side, Highway 61, we built a bypass. We have a single lane each direction on the northbound side on Highway 61. That'll basically be the traffic configuration for Highway 61 for this summer as well. We'll switch traffic over onto the southbound side once we get that built, but it'll be that same type of configuration. We have a little section of 3rd Street closed now for our building removal and our utility work. That'll stay closed. We'll be closing a little section of 4th Street. We have some sewer and water work to tie in on 4th Street. Yes?
When is that going to happen? Do you have any idea?
Soon is the best I can say. That sewer and water work, we had some trees that we had to get out of the way. Now with the rain today that's coming, but
you have a lake out there today.
Yeah, there's a lot of water sitting there. So the best, to be honest with you, it'll be very soon, as soon as
the 4th Street closure.
Yeah, the 4th Street
was the question. Yep, and that'll be, the rain push the utility crew back. They don't want to open that up until they have some good working days, just because of the contaminated soils that are on that site. That's the old gasification plant where they're going through there. They've got to be very cognizant of the soils, and they don't want water intermingling with those contaminants. So they'll wait to close 4th Street until they're ready, that they know they can get in there and keep moving with that sewer and water work. through that section.
We dug some test pits. There is contamination there that we have to deal with. We were aware, but now we know a little bit more about that contamination puzzle, if you will. So just to get ready for that. The road to the backside of Red Wing Shoes is still open. That is scheduled to close on August 14th. So we've been working with Red Wing Shoes. And then Levy Road down, the riverside, that's closed, and that'll stay closed for the majority of the construction, closed to the general public.
And that's basically the section of gravel road kind of down below ADM. It's not Levy Road going past Red Wing Grain or in front of Levy Park there on Icata Drive. It's really that portion that truly is more of an access for the wastewater treatment plant, and CP Rail uses that road. It was really never intended to be a public road going through there, and that's where we did our force main relocate, and there's going to be much more equipment rolling in there with the building a Pier 1 for the main river bridge. So,
yep. Levy Park is open, as Jay mentioned.
Yep.
So. Okay, on the construction side, then I'll start on the Wisconsin side and update 825th Street. On the west side, we excavated, did some what we call muck excavation, and built that up. That what we built there kind of acts as an anchor for our tall fill on Highway 63, so that we don't have a rotation of this tall fill. So we did muck excavation, built up 825th again to kind of act as an anchor for the fill that's coming, the tall fill on Highway 63, the approach to the bridge. That the approach to the bridge then will be bringing in what we call wick drain equipment. And we'll talk more about that perhaps at our next update here. But so we'll be drilling in what we call wick drains, and then we'll be building the fill up. And as the fill settles, the wick drains take the water out and take it out to the side, and it helps that settlement of our fill. So we'll talk more about wick drains and perhaps get some videos and give you some details on what exactly that is. That's kind of where that is over there. I talked about the box culvert on the far north end, or the far Wisconsin side, 12 by 12 box we have to build. We'll be starting that relatively soon in terms of that bypass work and the box culvert work. Then on the bridge itself, the New River Bridge, the goal is to get the substructures up and out of harm's way for flooding next spring. So in terms of what we've gotten accomplished so far, on the north abutment, all the piling has been driven. We basically have 18 piles that we drove, 157 feet approximately each one of them, plus 2 additional instrumented pile just to monitor the loading on the piling there. It's more of a test study for bridge design that we did.
You might have been hearing that the pile driving over the last week here, so I could hear it up in my house. I'm not too far from downtown, but you could hear them pounding those pile in for the abutment. So.
Those are what we call HP 14 by 117 piling, and that's a fancy word for an H-shaped configuration on the pile. They're about 14 inches, it's not exactly, but the H is 14 inches roughly on each dimension there, and 117 pounds per foot. That's what they weigh. Each pile, so those 18 pile on the north abutment were designed for 205 tons of loading, each one of them. That's the design load. And then soon we'll be forming up our footing. So you'll start to see some plywood and forming come up for our footing, and that'll be our first permanent bridge concrete pour, is that footing on the north abutment. Not too far down the road, so kind of stay tuned for that.
What was Terry, what was the depth of the pile that we get in the abutment?
Yeah, about 157 feet plus or minus to final bearing.
Okay.
Yep.
And just to be, I know you had it in your newsletter, the pile driving operations will be in Wisconsin. On the Minnesota side, there is no driven pile, correct?
Correct. No driven pile.
Walls will be on spread footings, and then the main river pier will be a cored shaft or a drilled shaft pile. So we've got buildings over here that are sensitive to vibration. Barn Bluff itself is sensitive to vibration, so the design on the Minnesota side is not no driven pile.
The most vibration we'll do, in my opinion, on the Minnesota Red Wing side will be down by Pier 1, down by the river. We'll actually have to put in some temporary sheeting for a cofferdam. So you also have a video of the sheeting installation.
Okay.
That'll be, in my opinion, the most vibration that will cause on the Red Wing side is a cofferdam for Pier 1. So Pier 6, we have 6 piers on the river bridge. So Pier 6 is the next one coming from the north abutment. We've got the cofferdam built. It's dewatered. We put in some bottoms of the piling. We vibrated those in. We haven't actually started pile driving on Pier 6 yet. But we put some bottoms in. We have 20 pile there. We're estimating those to be 135 feet each. That's our estimate going in. Each one of those has 291 tons per pile. That's the design load on those. Pier 5, the cofferdam is in. It's dewatered. We're getting ready. We can start putting in some piling in there anytime it kind of fits our schedule. And then up next is what we call Pier 3, which is close to where the campground had some buildings. We just took those down. It looked like to me today that the buildings were taken down. We got our sheeting delivered there for our cofferdam. The piling is close to that area, so that'll be one of the next places that we go in terms of the cofferdam sheeting installation and the pile driving is Pier 3. Well, then we'll work our way back out, Pier 4, Pier 5.
And all those piers are the Wisconsin side piers.
Those are Wisconsin side.
Our one pier on the Minnesota side is Pier 1, and that's where I talked about relocating the force main around, so the Pier 1 construction will start at some point here as well.
So Pier 2 is the one out in the river, adjacent to the existing pier that's out there for Bridge 9040. We're waiting for an amendment to our Corps of Engineer permit because the contractor wants to build a wooden trestle into the river. They actually had to amend our Corps permit, and we don't have that in hands yet. As soon as we get that, they'll start basically building into the river, building a wooden dock, 28 feet wide. They'll drive some piling, 28-foot wide dock, wooden, to get out into the river. Yes, sir.
For that trestle, how many pilings will be drove in for that, and how deep?
There's 4.
Roughly.
Yeah, there's.
The question was for the trestle.
Yep.
How many pilings?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, for the trestle, I'll get you some details, but there's 4 pile bents with a series of pile each one. I don't have the exact number. And we don't actually have in their plans the bearing that they're looking to drive to. So I can't actually answer that question right now, but I can tell you that the piling for Pier 2 we got 10-foot diameter piling in Pier number 2. The tip elevation that we're showing is 93 feet below water elevation. So what I'm telling you is if they drive that pile on their trestle down to bedrock, they'll be down roughly, give or take, 90 plus feet with their piling to get down that deep. And I suspect they will, because they'll have some heavy equipment out there, with the drilled shafts
Sure.
and concrete and such. So I suspect they'll go down 90 feet plus or minus, but we actually don't have that tip elevation on their trestle piling yet.
And that trestle would be a contractor designed element for their constructability. So they're putting together those plans to build that. That's not part of the actual bridge plan. That was their means and methods of how they're getting out to build their work, the permanent work.
So we needed the schematics of the layout in the river and how it's going to look. And in terms of the structural design, that's up to the contractor as a temporary works, if you will.
Yep.
Okay. Minnesota side then, Pier number 1, the sanitary force main work down by Pier 1 is basically completed. We have some inspection work left yet to do, but that went really well for us. At Pier number 1, there's 2 10-foot diameter shafts that we have to drill. Tip elevation on those is roughly 50 feet below water elevation, so they don't go as deep at Pier 1. The bedrock comes up there in terms of Pier 1 to Pier 2. Crane will be mobilized at Pier 1 area next week is the plan. We'll start with the cofferdam temporary sheeting that we drive in or vibrate in for that as soon as we get that crane there and get it set up and get going. We're coordinating with ADM and the Canadian Pacific Railroad. And then just an interesting nugget is that first span from the south abutment out to the Pier number 1 will actually be launched from the bank up above the tracks. MnDOT has never done that before. It'll be the first time for us. It's been done in the state, which is MnDOT under contract has not done that before. So we'll have a lot more about that as we start to see those launching plans and launching details.
That's the launching for the span 1, basically,
Span 1.
Over the railroad tracks.
So in terms of grading on the Red Wing or the Minnesota side, the buildings are removed. We've still got some cleanup work going on. I mentioned some asbestos that we have to abate yet. There's just down there this morning, and there's still some cleanup going on. Highway 61, we switched traffic. We've done some pavement removals on the new southbound side. You can start to see the button hook being graded where our new intersection will be. If you actually look at what's out there closely, you can start to see that where it's going to come off of Highway 61 and turn its way, to cross a temporary bridge, which is kind of fun. So then we'll get into the button hook construction that we need to do to put traffic onto a temporary bridge. And we have some sewer and water work like we talked about in terms of the old city campus area there, the Public
Yep.
Works campus. We got a line of sewer and water to run through there. Like we talked about, we'll close down 4th. We'll try and let you know as soon as we
Yeah,
can.
we got to hook in at 4th. We're taking that sewer and water off of 3rd Street and coming down and hooking it in at 4th rather than the way it hooks into Bluff Street right now to get out of the way of the button hook.
So I got some videos, unless there's questions. Go ahead and ask.
Yeah, we got, I asked Terry to bring some videos. You hear these words we're throwing out there. It's nice to get a visual of what a cofferdam is and how bridge construction works. And Terry's been building quite a few bridges here, so he's built up his own little video library of the different projects he's worked on, so.
So let's start with the cofferdam, like Jay talked about. This one is actually, you may have seen it if you came to the public meeting, but this is from the Winona Bridge project. And this is one of our cofferdams that we built there. So we're actually going to go down in. You can see the sheeting, the box, with the ring beams or the structural support that they put in there. There's 3 ring beams in this one. And we're going to go down to the river bottom, roughly 20, 25 feet below river elevation, where they've driven the piling and actually poured concrete in them, and they're starting to form the footing of the bridge pier. So it'll be very similar out in Pier 2 and Pier 1. So the piling are shells and they're capped because they're open. Someone could fall in. And we'll put some concrete in them and seal them up. And the carpenters are down there. You can hear them building the forms, the formwork for the footing. It's not completely dry. The water seeps in and they pump it out. And we're likely will work. This will likely be a situation out at Pier 2 and Pier 1 during the wintertime this coming winter. We're down in there working again, trying to get out of the way for flooding next spring so we get high enough where Mother Nature and the river won't slow us down schedule-wise. Okay, so that's cofferdam.
Carrie, do you have your mic on over there too?
Yeah, maybe
Okay,
not
good.
close enough. Okay, so then let's switch to a couple more bridge videos. These are from our Red Wing Bridge project. And here we're over on the Wisconsin side driving in the sheeting, cofferdam sheeting. They hit something a little hard, so they're going to pull it out a little bit. It's pretty precise. The joints on that are interlocking and they fit together as they go down. So it's not as easy as just drive it down. It takes a little tender loving care to get it put in and get those joints all put together. But you can see the ring beam, the H-beam, if you will, that's laying there, that's kind of acting as a support. That's the internal support. This kind of acts as a frame there, or a template, if you will. And then this guy would be, I think, is some piling. Yeah, so this is piling on pier number 6. And they're just vibrating this in. We're not hitting it with our hammer yet because we're just, the top part of it, we're just putting it into the granular material. We're not anywhere close to burying it, so we don't have to hit it with our big hammer yet. So they'll put this in, weld another piece on, and eventually we'll start hitting them with the pile hammer when it gets stiffer.
So Terry, what you showed right there, that would be the permanent piling for
This is one of the 18 permanent pile, and it's what we call the base, the first piece that is being vibrated in. It's not our pile hammer. I actually don't have a video with me today of the pile hammer, but I'll get some.
And then the other, Terry, the other sheeting, the sheet pile, they'll remove that then and
Yep,
use it on another project.
The cofferdam is temporary, just to basically allow us to dewater and get down there and form up our footing and pour our concrete in the dry for our footing. And then that's the contractors, they own that, so they'll take that out, like Jay says, and they'll own that when it's all done, tear it out, and go build another job with it. So here we're down inside Pier 6, and you can see we're about 8 feet below ground elevation. You got your ring beam, your sheeting, we've driven the bases. So we got a welder down there touching up the H-pile, the tops of them, so that we can weld on. We get a nice, good, solid weld there. So, you know, when they vibrate it or they hit it with a hammer, they do some deformation of that top piece of it, if you will. So we just clean it up a little bit before we go on with our next phase. And then the last bridge one I've got is, I think, a view from over the campground area. I like to show this view because if you go stand over there and look at it, you've got the bridge on the left, and you can see those ADM tanks on the right, and we've got to fit a new bridge in there.
Yeah.
And that new bridge is over 52 feet wide. And I just stand there and I think about it, and it's going to fit, and we're going to be fine, but there's no question.
I think we measured right during design, didn't we, Terry?
We did.
It should fit in there.
I talked about budget. If that doesn't fit, that's a major change. But no, we're fine. It'll fit. But it is a, you know, an interesting challenge. And then on the grading side, or the roadway construction side, I've got a few videos for you. So this one is the pavement, concrete pavement removal. So there's a number of ways to do concrete pavement removal. You can use a drop hammer. We call it a guillotine drop, which causes a lot of vibrations, but it's very fast. Or you can take a vibratory resonant breaker that runs over it and vibrates it at a very high frequency and breaks it up. It goes very fast. This is the slow way, but this is a minimal vibratory impact way to do this. We actually required the contractor to do something different than a drop hammer and a resonant breaker because of the bluff. So we've got a vibration monitor on the bluff monitoring if they cause enough vibration to trigger our limits that could cause damage to the bluff. So I wanted to show you this. There's a lot that went into this pavement removal operation.
That was the same operation we used all the way for the Main Street project from Old West Main to Potter Street. In the last couple of years, you probably saw that same piece of equipment.
Yep.
Not as quick as just drop hammering and pounding it up, but it's how you have to do it when you have old buildings and vibration is of concern.
So here we're picking up the broken up concrete pavement, just a removal operation, and that's the old, what we call the old Langer property there, which is actually pretty clean. It's been cleaned up quite a bit. And then this guy, it's a tree removal. I kind of get a kick out of this grubbing machine. The guy's operating at remote control. So he was actually doing this yesterday. I was out. I thought I'd get a little video of it. He's got a pretty good sized stump there he's working at. And the guy standing to the right side, he's operating
Yep.
that equipment. He can move it, move the arm up and down. He can do all kinds of stuff with it. So
That's the area right now that's full of water, as you mentioned, after the rain today.
And just two more. So this one, I was watching the dozer, I was taking some video of them, and I actually was kind of cool. I respect the operators. When they're really good, they can do some neat stuff. So if you watch this guy, he's going down this slope, and he wants to finish it off. There's some material on the bottom, and you can see some loose debris there. So he wants to finish the slope off. So he goes down there, fairly steep grade, puts his blade down, and just slowly backs her up, and he's just finishing that slope, to keep that material from washing away, and just kind of doing his job, tender loving care. So thought I'd get a little video of that. And then finally, just one of the big, I call these mining trucks, rock trucks. They're just doing some grading work. You can see the equipment working. We've actually got quite a bit of equipment going on the Red Wing side now in terms of backhoes and dozers and trucks and equipment going. So he's just coming over to dump some fill, and the dozer's going to push her out. Again, what I call the Langer property area. This was going on yesterday as well. So that's that. Take any questions, or Jay, if you got
Yeah, how about any other questions, or did any questions come in while we're online? Nothing?
Do you have an estimated time that you're going to have all the pilings in the campground?
The question was the estimated time on the pilings and when the pilings will all be installed in the campground.
Yeah, it'll be sporadic. So we got piers 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
It'll be at least a couple of weeks at each location, not full-time constant, but it'll take at least that long to drive the piling once we get started. So it helps to be able to vibrate them in, so we're not, doing that hammering as much, but at least a couple of weeks for Piers 3, 4, 5, and 6. Each one of them.
Right.
Any other questions?
And if I could, they're not allowed to do pile driving over the weekend, if that helps at all. They're not allowed to drive piling over the weekend. We set the contract up that way. And then they have to abide by some restrictions in terms of evening work as well. They can't work during the night, those types of things. So we'll be as respectful as we can.
We have our noise ordinance here in Red Wing that there may be a point that we've talked about. They can request some nighttime work, and we'll review it at that point. But we haven't heard of anything as of now that they're looking for nighttime work. We did that on a bridge into Colville Park. The contractor did some nighttime removal and beam setting a couple years ago on that 61 bridge by Nymphair Lane. So that's an option. But what about, have they been working a lot of Saturdays, Terry? Is it?
They have not been working a lot of Saturdays or Sundays, and I don't think they have intentions to. Again, we're on schedule. It's not critical. We're not behind at all, and they're doing fine working 5 days a week in terms of sticking to the schedule. So I don't anticipate that, at least for now.
Yeah. Well, good. This was, we're going to be back on Wednesdays now, first Wednesday of every month. So the next one will be September 6th. And then we just plan to try to keep going through this. I imagine, Terry, there'll be some winter work, so I think we'll probably continue with these updates here right on through the winter, so, and into next construction season. So come back and join us again. First Wednesday of every month. We're going to try to keep it on Wednesdays now. This was a weird one that we had a scheduling thing to get going. We had to do one on Thursday, but we welcome you back and bring your questions, and thanks for coming.